All right. I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Greenfield Community Preservation Committee at 5:32 p.m. on July 27th, 2023. So let's just do a roll call of who's here right now. Travis, I am here. Garth,
Here.
Tom, Wisty, Susan, and Donna. All right, so everyone is currently here. So first on the agenda, we have election of 2023 to 2024 officers. Since this is the first meeting of the fiscal year. So first up is chair. Does anyone want to be chair this upcoming year?
I'd like to make a nomination.
Oh, you have to turn on your microphone.
I would like to make a nomination. I would like to nominate Travis to continue as chair. Third.
All right, so we have a nomination for me that was seconded. Any other nominations or anyone want to nominate themselves? Okay, I'm not hearing any others, so let's just do a vote on me for chair, I guess. So all those in favor? Aye. All right, anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, so that vote is unanimous and I will be chair this upcoming year. So, yep.
Just a little point of order, because I wasn't sure if anybody had actually asked you if you were willing to be chair.
Yeah,
Isn't that usually something that happens?
yeah.
Has anybody asked Garth if he's willing to be vice president again?
Well,
'Cause I think that's where this is going.
Last night. Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Well,
just
speaking
checking
of-
in about procedure here.
Yeah, I guess I figured since I was the one doing it, I knew I was going to accept it, so I just went ahead with it. But yeah, we should ask when we nominate people just to make sure that they would actually want to do it, I guess. So next on the agenda is the vice chair, and I actually wanted to nominate Susan to be vice chair this upcoming year, if she would be willing to accept that nomination.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a nomination for Susan that was seconded. Anyone else? Any other nominations?
Happy to roll.
Okay, I'm not hearing any others. So all those in favor of Susan being vice chair? Aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? All right, anyone abstaining? Okay, that is unanimous. So congratulations, Susan. So then next we have the secretary position, which it's not actually an official position, but we, at our previous meetings, for the past, year and a half or so, we've been rotating who's been taking notes. And I think we've all kind of agreed that it hasn't been the smoothest process trying to figure out. Not anyone in particular, just everyone trying to reorganize every meeting. So we had talked at our last meeting about hopefully for this next year having someone who would take notes for every meeting. Obviously, if they're absent, someone else would fill in. But just one
Question?
Yeah, we got a question. Could you turn your microphone on too? Because we are recording this. Oh, sorry, I should mention we are recording this meeting. By the
I
way.
apologize. Does the city have a roving utility administrative support person who does minutes for other meetings, even if they're brought in from the outside?
Not really, for the most part, unless the committee has like a long-standing like policy to have a city staff member take minutes. Committee members are supposed to be taking their own minutes. One of the few examples is for the Commission on Disability Access. A city staff member always takes minutes for them.
I didn't know, we had a float, we had a person that we hired part-time to do like 3 or 4 different committees.
Yeah, I mean, you guys could do that. You have the administrative funds if you wanted to pay someone just a little bit, but yeah, no current staff members for that.
Thank you.
I'll just add another example is the Conservation Commission has, the conservation agent does the minutes. That's just another example, but yeah. So does anyone want to volunteer to be our minute taker for
No.
the, so
Who's not here? I nominate whoever
Well,
we get from the historic.
yeah, I mean,
Commission.
we're all here right now. Everyone who's on the committee is here right now. So I guess then we need to figure out a solution. Are we going to continue rotating like we were previously, or?
I mean, I think I'm okay with rotating. I don't have the capacity to do it every time, but once in a while. I also like Tom's idea. I'm wondering if we want to look into finding someone who could potentially be our note taker for a small fee,
Okay.
or perhaps one of the new members would be interested in volunteering.
So should we put this discussion off until we get more members, and potentially tonight, if someone could volunteer for tonight, or we could continue what the rotation was from before.
I did it last time.
Okay, Donna did it last time, and we were going alphabetical first
practice.
name. So Garth would be tonight
Back to me.
if we continue the rotation, yeah. So I guess you got it tonight, and then hopefully once we get new members, maybe one of them will will do it for us, or we can discuss this later. So we should probably get to our public hearing for tonight, though. Okay. Okay, so next on our agenda, we have our public hearing. And as our agenda says, this is to get comments on Greenfield's needs, possibilities, and resources with regard. Do we have?
I
a
can
phys-
look on with someone and you may have mine.
And we just had a question if there was a copy of the agenda that is being handed out at the moment. Can you pass that over? Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay,
Travis, can we put the agenda up on the screen perhaps?
okay. So we're gonna put the agenda up on the screen for a second, and then we'll go back to our presentation. So while he's pulling up the agenda, I'm gonna read the notice for the public hearing. Notice of Public Hearing, Community Preservation Act, CPA. Notice is hereby given that the Greenfield Community Preservation Committee, CPC, will hold a public hearing to solicit input from citizens regarding the development of the fiscal year 24 Community Preservation Plan, which will be used to guide the CPC's decision-making on Community Preservation Act, CPA project proposals. The CPA established local dedicated fund is used to undertake open space, historic preservation, outdoor recreation, and community housing projects. The public hearing will be held on Thursday, July 27th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. at the John Zon Community Center, 35 Pleasant Street, Greenfield, Mass. 01301, and remote via Zoom hybrid. The public will have an opportunity to comment on Greenfield's needs, possibilities, and resources with regard to community preservation. Information on the CPA and the current fiscal year 23 Community Preservation Plan can be found at, and there's a link to the CPC's webpage. Written comments may also be sent to the Department of Community and Economic Development. Attention, Christian LaPlante, 14 Court Square, Greenfield, Mass. 01301, or via email at cpc@greenfield-ma.gov and received by August 10th, 2023 at noon. It says 2022 on this sheet, but it should be 2023. Okay, so for the public hearing, we're going to start with a presentation, and then we'll go to a public comment period after that. So here's our agenda for the presentation. We're going to welcome, and do introductions. Give an overview of the Community Preservation Act, go over the fiscal year 23 projects that were funded, talk a little about the Greenfield Community Preservation Plan. If there are any questions before we get to the public comment period, we'll go over those then, and then we'll have a public comment period. So first on the list is introductions. So as you can see here, these are the members of the Greenfield Community Preservation Committee. Maybe we could just go down the line and people could introduce themselves and say how they were appointed to the Community Preservation Committee. So I'll start. I'm Travis Drury. I'm currently the chair, and I was appointed by the Conservation Commission.
I'm Garth Schoenfeld, mayoral appointee.
Susan Wargaftig, City Council appointee. Donna Dussel, Recreation Commission.
Tom Garino, Housing Authority appointee.
Wisty Rohrabacher, City Council appointee.
All right, thanks everyone. So just to remind everyone, the Community Preservation Committee through the Community Preservation Act is required to have a member from Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Historical Commission, Recreation Commission, and the Housing Authority. A couple of those positions are currently vacant because we had some recent turnover, but we should be getting some more members soon. And then we have 2 mayoral appointees and 2 city council appointees. Okay. So just an overview of the Community Preservation Act. This is a state law that was passed in 2000, and it enables Massachusetts communities like ours to raise funds and create a local dedicated fund to build and rehabilitate parks, playgrounds, and recreational fields, protect open space, support local affordable housing development, and preserve historic buildings and resources. And Greenfield voters adopted CPA through a vote in November 2020. So the funding source for CPA, there are two sources, a local source and a state source. Greenfield adopted a 1% property tax surcharge on residential and commercial property owners with 2 exemptions. The first one that happens automatically is the first $100,000 of residential and commercial property value are automatically exempt from this. And then there's an optional low income household or low or moderate income senior households can get an exemption from the property tax surcharge. And if you want any information about that, you can contact the assessor's office. So in fiscal year 23, this past year, Greenfield raised approximately $230,000 in local CPA revenue. And that will be matched by the statewide Community Preservation Trust Fund. And the match amount is variable year to year based on the amount of funding available. And we haven't yet received the state match, so we don't know exactly what it's going to be. But we'll update through our our future meetings when we have that.
Well, so we haven't received the match based on the FY23 money, but we did receive the match that was based on our FY22 local revenue, which we received in FY23, and that was a match of 38% or around 80 something thousand. So decent chunk.
Okay, thanks for that update. So our responsibilities as a CPC, three main responsibilities: study the needs, possibilities, and resources of the community as it relates to the Community Preservation Act, and develop a community preservation plan. Also, we review and recommend CPA projects to City Council, and we are required to keep records and report on the CPA budget of Greenfield. So just a little breakdown of how the budget works. Sure, we had a question here to go back to the last slide. And we'll be sharing all of this online as well, the slides and everything. So if you want to look at them later. So yeah, on the next slide, the CPC is required to put at least 10% into each of three categories: housing, open space and recreation, which share a category, and historic preservation. And then we can put up to 5% into a fund for administrative costs, and then the remaining amount in a flexible account that can be used for any of those three project areas. So fiscal year 23 was actually the first year that CPA projects were funded in Greenfield, and we had $335,000 available for funding projects this past year. And just to note there, fiscal year 23 just ended at the end of June. And so those projects were just funded technically earlier this calendar year, but last fiscal year. And last year we had over $900,000 in requested funding through 10 recreation projects, 3 historic projects, and 1 housing project. And out of those, 7 were fully funded and 3 were partially funded. And you can see a breakdown right here of all the different projects. The 3 in red at the top are historic projects. We had the 1 housing project, and the rest are recreation projects. We didn't have any open space projects last year. And as you can see, the ones that are in bold are projects that were fully funded. Okay. And this is how it breaks down by category. So last year, out of the $335,000, you can see 100,000 went to housing, over 47,000 for historic projects, and the remainder for recreation projects. So that brings us to our community preservation plan, which we adopted a community preservation plan last year. That was our first iteration of that plan. And the function of that plan is to establish the criteria for how we're going to evaluate applications for funding, and establish the processes and timelines in reviewing applications. It also is meant to inform the applicants and the public of our goals, and it's a commitment to an open and transparent approach to reaching our recommendations. And it also provides City Council with the background information needed when reviewing our recommendations to them. And again, it just says, it articulates a common understanding of the community's needs and priorities. And just a reminder, we're probably going to have this slide in every single presentation that we do. But, it's a great reminder of the types of projects that are eligible for funding through the Community Preservation Act. There's a lot of nuance in what it means to fall under support versus rehabilitate, or things like that. So, that's why we're here to help with that, and reviewing pre-applications and letting people know if their project would qualify under one of these categories. So the guiding principles that we came up with for our plan last year are listed here. And as you can see, we want to advance projects with high or multiple community benefits. We're also really interested in prioritizing projects that are very urgent. We really want to maximize leveraging our funds. So if a project is receiving CPA funds and they can use that as a match for like a state grant to get even more funding, that just kind of multiplies how useful the CPA funding is to a project. And you can see there, the last one is to ensure the maintenance of CPA funded investments, essentially, ensuring that the money will go towards projects that are going to be sustainable long-term. And so the project priorities that we came up with for our plan for last year we really felt like the highest priority was the creation of further housing opportunities in the city. And we listed that as our number one priority in the plan. Also, we're, very interested in furthering climate resilience and improving access to the city's open space. You can see here that we actively want to preserve and enhance the cultural, architectural, and environmental heritage of our community. And we want to increase access to outdoor public recreation opportunities. These were the priorities that we identified last year. Though, as it says at the bottom, if projects are eligible and they don't necessarily meet one of these priorities, they're still considered for funding. And so this is kind of what we want feedback on through this public hearing process is, are these still the priority? We identified these about a year ago. So are these still, the top priorities for Greenfield, and, get public feedback on that. And just a little update on the project approval process. This has changed slightly from last year. We kind of bumped up the pre-application and full application due dates by a couple weeks, just to give a little more time after that. So starting next month, we should be announcing the amount of funding that will be available. And then pre-applications will be due by September 15th. And pre-applications are required in order to receive, in order to submit a full application. And the pre-application process lets us, determine whether a project is eligible before someone, has to fill out a full application. So then we'll, then full applications due on November 15th. Then we'll review those applications, meet with applicants, and then vote on project recommendations and submit to city council. And we really hope that, we get public input sort of the whole way through the process. So, anytime you want, feel free to email cpc@greenfield-ma.gov, with comments, or come to one of our meetings and, let us know what you think about the way we're doing things, or the way how you feel about the projects that we'll be reviewing.
And when we receive them, we'll
Yeah.
be announcing those as well.
Yeah. We'll be announcing the projects. So I just wanted to open it up now before we get to the public comment period, just in case there were any questions on this presentation, or any ways that if you're curious how CPA works, or how the CPC works, or, any questions before we get to the public comments, because the public comments are going to be more you letting us know what you think the priorities are for projects this upcoming year and how we can best evaluate those. So are there any questions at this time? And we do have someone online, so I'll just give a second. Okay, doesn't seem like there are any questions. So at this time, we can go to the public comment period. So I just put a couple questions here to help inspire people's public comments. What types of CPA projects do you think are most important to the people of Greenfield? How would you rank the 4 categories? Would you prefer more money be spent towards one of those versus another? And would you like to see funding distributed similar to the way we showed for fiscal year 23, or would a different distribution be better? Keeping in mind that funding can only go to projects that apply. So if we don't get any projects in a particular category area, then we can't fund any. So I will open it up to public comments at this time. And if anyone has a public comment in person, you can come up to the microphone. And otherwise, if you're online, feel free to unmute yourself and we'll get to your comment. Okay, it seems we do not have any in person, so just wanted to double check online. If you're online and you're trying to make a public comment right now, you're muted, so you would need to unmute.
Hello, I'm just watching just to see what it looks like, so I don't really have any comments. So if you're waiting for me, there's nothing for me to say. But thank you for the information. It's really interesting.
Okay, thank you. Right, so it seems we do not have any more public comments. So we'll go ahead and end the public comment period. And that concludes our public hearing for this year. Although you still can, as I said earlier, if you have, if you're watching a recording of this and you have comments, you can send them to cpc@greenfield-ma.gov by August, what did I say, August 10th? August 10th. All right. So I'll get back to my agenda here. All right, so next on our agenda, we have approval of minutes from our June 22nd, 2023 meeting. Anyone wanna make a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes.
We have
I'll second.
a motion to approve the minutes, seconded. Any other discussion? Anything anyone saw in the minutes they wanted to change? All right, hearing none, we'll do a vote on approving the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining?
I'll abstain.
All right, Tom is abstaining. So that motion passes. And the minutes from June 22nd are approved. So now we're on to new business. First on the list, we have updating community preservation plan. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So we had this public hearing, no comments, but there's still going to be opportunity for feedback through August 10th. So if there, I think I did get one so far. So there will be things for me to send to all of you and try and incorporate into the plan. There should be some pretty simple basic updates to the plan, just like changing dates, changing numbers, adding, there's a few sections where it said we'll add stuff after our first year. I can go through and add that kind of basic stuff. But then I'm thinking at your August meeting, when you have all your feedback and all of you have looked the plan over a few times, you can have a pretty kind of more in-depth discussion about the plan, do any tweaks to it, and then vote to approve it for this year at the August meeting. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So I did review the plan. As you all know, I was fairly new when it came out last year, having been, and it's always been a point of confusion for me that open space and recreation are two separate categories, and yet they get lumped together, and they where every category gets 10% of the pie, open space and recreation gets 10% together. And just, you know, in listening to your presentation and just with the weather we've had and all of the crazy climate stuff that's been going on, I really, I feel like there needs to be a better delineation there. I mean, some of the things that we funded, for instance, the trail remediation, seems like it was more open space, but it was also recreation. But I don't know how we can, first of all, get some applications, get some ideas for projects that would specifically address these types of issues. And I also wonder about the equity of having it be two separate categories with one set of 10% funding.
Well, the 10% is the minimum.
Yeah.
Obviously, we gave 80% of our funding
Sure.
to that category.
Yes, we did, but on paper, it's still lumped together.
Yeah, and I guess what I would point out is that we're a little constrained by the requirements of the Community Preservation Act in that way. And I think the main reason that they're separate is just mainly because of that rehabilitate and restore, because you can't do that on open space land, but for open space projects, but you can do that for recreation, which I think is what was every single recreation project this past year was rehabilitate. I guess the other thing is that open space, I think, is more, I think the city needs to either be acquiring land to preserve it for open space purposes, or putting like a conservation restriction on a piece of land for open space. And anything other than that, I think falls under recreation. So anything that's like in an existing park would have to be recreation. And like, I'm here representing the Conservation Commission, and none of the CPA money can be used for rehabilitating any existing conservation land. We can't use the money for like doing like a stream restoration or anything like that because of that no in the table for open space rehabilitation. And I think that's what separates the recreation and open space. And I guess I'm just wondering, are you saying that you think in our plan, it needs to specify better what the difference is between recreation and open space, or should we?
I think it's confusing for people reading it. And I think it's unfortunate for the rehabilitation, because honestly, if you had a piece of land that you wanted to preserve, probably part of preserving that would be some form of rehabilitation. So maybe that's an issue that needs to be taken up with the state. But I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, so maybe we can, when we're reading through the plan before our next meeting, maybe we can look at that specifically and see if there's a way to better spell that out in our plan. And I know it is confusing, and I think our applications that we received this past year, a lot of them had checked that they thought that they were open space, whereas technically none of them were open space projects. So I think that kind of speaks to the confusion of what is open space and what is recreation. So
Yeah, I think it does. Even just looking at our plan, expand opportunities for all residents to engage in programmed and passive recreation activities is in the open space section. Reduce flooding and erosion along the Green River. That would have to be some sort of rehabilitation or restoration. It's confusing.
yeah. Okay. Anyone have any other comments on that? Okay, so we'll take a look at that. Does anyone have any other comments about the plan before we move on? Or, like we said, we'll get to it in more detail next time.
Yeah. Particularly rereading it after having gone through the whole process, I was more impressed with it than originally. But, it's pretty laborious to go through. And I wonder if we could do anything like sort of put a summary in there or direct people to where there are certain sections that would encourage people to do recreation projects or other things. I think it's hard to know where to look to get guidance from the plan.
I think it's certainly worth looking at it if we can, if we can edit it down, right? If there's just sort of extra verbiage where we're just talking about like, then open space is open space and we can only do X, Y, and Z in open space. But if we have a couple examples and we want to put those in there, maybe that's sufficient to have in the plan versus like pages and pages of, the legalese about it from the CPA Act.
Yeah, and I'm not sure personally, like in city documents, what should be there just because they're official city documents. For instance, I think there's information in there, about the background of Greenfield. Like one of the continual rubs that I have has to do with Energy Park, and we present it as this glorious thing and blah, 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 which it isn't. And so things have, it seems to me that some of the background information, I don't know whether we're required to put that in, because it seems to repeat what would show up in other committees. And I know that if I were trying to put an application forward, it's confusing enough to look through all that stuff. And I just think that to simplify it and give people direction would be helpful.
I think it would be good to sort of ask some questions, does your project, will your project, is your project, that,
Yeah, I think that all sounds like good food for thought for our next meeting. I have a feeling our next meeting is we're going to spend a lot of time looking through our plan and modifying and things like that. So yeah, definitely everyone read through it again, and we'll try and figure out how to. I think this last year what I remember at the beginning of the process is that we thought the beginning of each section, like open space, recreation, historic, I think and housing, don't want to leave that out, is that we said like the first page was going to try to be like a standalone, like it could be used as like a standalone. I'm not sure if we quite achieved that goal, but I think that's what we had planned on doing last year. So maybe we can look at those and see, if that actually makes sense. And if so, maybe we need to like pull those pages out and just have like each of those pages on our website. Like, here's a brief, this is what open space is. This is what, yeah, like an executive summary.
Yeah, so that makes me think and question if the plan would be something different than, say, guidelines or something. So that if somebody is thinking about taking out an application, they could get some guidelines or some kind of guidance that way. Maybe the plan is supposed to serve that function. I'm not sure. I'm not sure precisely what the plan is supposed to do, and maybe it's trying to do too much. I'm not sure, but I would just be repeating myself. I would want more guidance and more help. And the only other thing is not at all addressed in the plan, and maybe it shouldn't be, is I feel some sense of urgency to be in touch more with the public, to reach out so that they know what we're doing, and the availability of this money still, and to inspire more people to put in applications and to really look at the town. I feel really proud about how last year went, and I feel really proud of the plan that we did. I just think that we've learned an awful lot. So.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, if no one has anything else on the plan, we can move on to the rest of our new business. The next thing is fiscal year 24 funding round preparation. I have a feeling Christian might have something to talk about there.
Sure. So all of you pretty much reviewed all of your documents over the last 3 months or so since you approved the projects. So those are kind of in a place where I think I can turn those into the final form so that we can make them available to the public at the beginning of August so people can start submitting pre-apps. I'll update, there's a web page that's all about CPC funding on the city's website. I'll make sure that one's updated for this year. So yeah, we'll be making pre-apps available pretty soon. I'll check in with Travis if I have to change anything substantial, but so your pre-apps will be available. Your plan won't be finalized until the end of August, but that's okay because you won't be reviewing stuff for a while. That's actually what we did last year, I believe. So I think we're in a good spot to initiate the next round of funding. I'm working with the finance department to get the latest numbers on how much funding you'll have available. I think it'll be pretty similar to what you had last year. Last year was 335,000, maybe a little bit less, mostly because you basically had almost 2 full years of funding to work with last year. And you kind of did like a little bit over one, using up 1.5. So this year there might be just a little bit less. So probably around 300,000. But yeah, pretty soon applications will be open.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead.
just a question. I don't see, and they may be looking at it remote. I don't see anyone from the press here this evening, and I don't know if there's anybody online. It might make some sense if Christian, it all goes to you, but has time to perhaps put a quick press release.
Yes, so we did a press release for this meeting. That was end up in the paper.
Right.
And I'll work with, we have a full-time communications director again in the mayor's office. So I'll have him put together a press release for the notice of availability of funding. He's pretty excited about CPC because he was a reporter formerly and he loved covering CPC. So he's excited to get the word out now that he's kind of on the other side of it.
Okay, thank you.
Seems worth doing that once we know or have a pretty good idea of the number, and I guess the match is still a little fuzzy, but
So match is actually okay, because for match purposes, we already know what the previous year's match, which was 38%. And then for this active year, we're just working off the budget where we just used a match estimate of 15%, which is really all you can't spend anything more than that. Is what you put in the budget. It will be higher than 15%, but because of the way budgets work, it means we really don't have to worry about it, at least for like this year's purposes.
Okay. Any other comments on fiscal year 24 funding round preparation? All right. So our next new business, we have an agenda item for recruitment of members / committee member attendance. And I know I'm assuming the recruitment of members is we have one mayoral appointee position that's been vacant for a while. Not that long, but just a few months maybe. And I think, Christian, did you ask the mayor's office if anyone had actually applied for that yet?
Yeah, I tried to check in. I don't actually know if I got the update. I can talk with the mayor's administrative assistant again and check in about basically all three because she's actively working on the other two as well from historic and planning. So I can hopefully have an update at the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, because I feel like it kind of it matters whether someone has actually applied and is waiting to be appointed, or if no one has applied. Whether we need to be actively trying to recruit people. So I guess I kind of feel like maybe we just wait on that and find out. But if anyone else has any other thoughts on that?
contested elections are always good. You can have multiple people. If anyone knows anyone good, have them submit something. Maybe they'll end up on another committee and be useful there.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say if you're watching this video and you live in Greenfield and you're interested in being on the CPC, reach out to the mayor's office to ask to be appointed. Okay, I don't have nothing else on that then.
I mean, there's the committee member attendance.
Yeah. And so then the second part of that one was committee member attendance. I know we had talked about, I think we had one meeting where we didn't have a quorum that I recall. But otherwise we haven't missed a quorum other than that one. And we talked about how there doesn't seem to be like a mechanism. I guess I'll just give an example from the Conservation Commission. That's where I come from. In the bylaw, it specifies like after 2 or it might be 3 missed meetings, then it says the chair will talk to them. And then after that, then the chair goes to the mayor to ask them to like remove them from the committee or, that's like an extreme example, but I don't think we have any mechanism like that, but I think we just wanted to have a discussion on, trying to be in attendance at meetings. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to add on
I
that.
have a question, Mr. Chair. Is it out of the realm of possibility? I know Thursdays have been working well for most of the members. It's not a great night for me due to other commitments, but my question is there a possibility to move this to Wednesdays?
I will say any change of day or which week of the month would work really well because you guys are at the same time as the Sustainable Greenfield Implementation Committee. And there's a lot of overlap between what you guys are doing and what they're doing. As you saw, a couple members from their committee were submitting applications. So we were having to work around that last year. So there's lots of reasons why different day and time could work well.
Yeah, and I guess one comment I have on that is since there are 2 new members like in the process, I wonder if we should wait. I mean, hopefully by our next meeting.
Yeah,
They'll be
again,
here.
I'm not trying to upset the apple cart. I'm just
Oh,
asking
yeah.
a question. That's all. If this works, it's fine. And I will do my best. I've had a couple of Zoom calls where I haven't been able to connect. And I
Mhm.
don't know why that is, but I haven't been able to get in.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have like direct contact information for Christian? Maybe that would, like if you were trying to call in, maybe we
Well,
could do
when
some
I'm on,
technical support.
yes, I do, but I should put him in my phone, I guess. I don't have him
Yeah.
as a number, so I'm
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
I don't want to be fumbling if I'm driving back.
Yeah, I understand.
But I can do that.
Okay. But yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe at our next, I think we have talked about moving our meeting date and time, and every day of the week and time that we brought up, someone had a
Yeah,
conflict, but
right. That's why it's not a big deal. I just
yeah,
brought it up as a food for thought type thing.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think Susan might have something.
Yeah, I was just wondering if considering that almost half of the people on this committee are appointees by other committees, that we're in kind of, when we start talking about saying you have to show up at a given time or that kind of thing, if maybe there's a way to connect with those committees to say, we seem to have a problem here. So-and-so who is representing you is not appearing. Can you check on what's happening and let us know? It just seems to me that we're in a somewhat different position than a lot of other committees, and that we don't have, it's not like everyone's been appointed absolutely directly, and therefore there's an expectation based solely on that. So I just feel it's a little more complicated.
There are a number of municipal committees that have designees from other departments on them, okay? We had a rule that if you missed 40% of the meetings in any particular year, you needed to relinquish your post to another person who could make it. That was a standardized rule.
The committee issue, I think, is important because when we're considering applications, it really helps to have information, like if it's a historic related application, it helps to have somebody from that committee.
Right.
The recreation, like Donna, your role is hugely important and you're here, so.
And if I don't show up, you can take it up with me because I'm the chair of the recreation. Committee.
Right. I mean, that's sort of the thing, right? Everybody's volunteered and, almost by definition, they're also volunteering on at least one other committee. Right. I know I have like this last week is always like my 5 different meetings. So I also have a board meeting on Wednesday, and then we're like, oh, well, can we move to the previous Wednesday? Well, that's a city council meeting. And we
Yeah.
can't like clash into that. Like, well, what happens on the second one? Oh, that's like Ways and Means. And right. So trying to fit it in the month worth of city meetings is, I think, always going to be a challenge. We sort of have to do the best we can and hope we get at least quorum for everything.
Yeah, and I guess just to speak to that a little bit is like, we don't necessarily have to be at every meeting, but as long as we're trying to be at most meetings, like that's really what's important. Okay, so maybe we'll discuss it more. If we have 2 more people joining, I think maybe we'll talk about this at our next meeting as well. And when we're updating our plan, I don't know. I mean, we could maybe make an internal rule, like, if you miss so many meetings, like, we'll ask you why. And I don't know.
I think at the very least, we should set some expectations. I agree. Yeah.
Does anyone have any expectations to set right now, or should we leave that for a discussion for the next meeting?
I meant after we all think about it next time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other comments or questions on that item?
Could always make it, if you miss one, you have to be the minute taker at the next, the next one. Although that may just encourage people to never. show
Yeah,
up
then they're
again.
not going to come back. Then they're not going to be back.
They disappear, right?
Okay. So next on our agenda, we have old business, fiscal year 23 project updates. See if Christian has something.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, I said I had submitted to the city's attorney for review the municipal agreements that we'll have with the recreation department, as well as the grant agreements we'll have with the other recipients, the non-municipal recipients, as well as the historic preservation restriction that will go along with the fairgrounds project. Those are almost done. I checked in with the city's attorney. He said he'd have them to me by the end of next week. So by the end of next week, I should be able to get all those sent off, hopefully, to all of the recipients. I know a lot of them are hoping to have these by maybe even earlier than when they're going to get them. So some of the projects could end up a little bit shifting their time frame, but I don't think there was really any of them that's like, if we don't get it now, it's not going to happen. At the worst, it'll happen next year, which is completely acceptable. We can always make sure the contract just goes that long, or we can always do extensions. So we're nearing the part where we have contracts with people.
Christian, I have a question. So for some of these projects, like weather might have an impact, like if it takes too long and the season gets too far in, would people be allowed to, like, say the fairgrounds, would they be allowed to like work on their roof and then get reimbursed for the work that they've already done? If for some reason, like the contract doesn't come through?
I wish I had it. I don't think I do. Well, maybe I do. There's a disbursement policy that we're going to use, which
I thought it was all reimbursement.
Yeah.
based. Like we're not forwarding them. the
No,
money
yeah.
anyway.
basically almost no one. So for the municipal ones for Christie, it's basically just going to get transferred internally into a city account for her to use. For all the other ones, for very small projects, like I think it might be like less than 1,000 or less than 2,000 is the number that's set. It's just, this is a template that I think it was Northampton uses. They basically just can't pull any money until the project's completed. And then we send them the money all at once. Larger projects, they can either request it by invoice, or like once you've done like a third, you can request a third. But yeah, it's all reimbursement.
I feel like maybe the question was if they went ahead and started doing the projects before the signed grant agreement.
Yeah, that would not be allowable. At that point, they wouldn't be able to be reimbursed for that kind of work. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I work with CDBG a lot, and I know with CDBG, if you do that, you can't be reimbursed. And I'm pretty sure there's something in one of these contracts and the
But if
agreements that's similar.
Mr. Chairman, if it's already under, let's say, the fairgrounds folks, they know what the money is that they're going to do. They have signed a contract with Post once everything is signed through council and that. But once they sign the contract, let's say they have a summer like this summer and they can't get up on the roof and they can't do whatever it is they need to do. There's already an existing contract. They could come back to CPC and ask that that be extended 6 months or whatever, because it would be encumbered in the municipal fiscal funds anyways, because there's already a contract signed. So they could, if they had a summer like this, I think they could come back and ask the CPC to extend their ability to get the job done by 6 months or whatever the case may be. But
Yeah.
because there's already a contract, it would carry over.
Yeah. I think the clarification is they can't start doing the work before they sign a grant agreement with the city.
Grant agreement.
But once they sign the grant agreement, if they need an extension, they can come to us and we can extend it.
Exactly. And for some of the ones that are very far out, like for example, the housing project on Wells Street, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have it go out as far as possible for the initial agreement. And then that way we don't have to keep doing 6 months extensions.
That's a good, yeah. Okay, thank you.
I guess this isn't necessarily a project update, but Christian, I think you were also getting signs together to have at the project sites. Did you get those printed already?
I have not got those printed already. That was because we were still waiting for city council to approve our current year's budget that got approved at their most recent meeting. So I'm waiting for the final approved financial order to see that and making sure it's actually available in our accounting system. And then I can order them because we couldn't pay them from last year's funds because it was, by that point, it was like July 1st when I had those ready. And once the fiscal year rolls over, you can't access the previous year's funds. So.
Okay, thanks. All right. That's the end of our agenda, other than saying that our next meeting is August 24th, 2023. And that should be, I assume we'll probably be back in the City Hall meeting room for that meeting.
Yep, I believe so. I was hoping to talk to the library because I don't think it's ready yet, but there will be a Zoom room in there that has the exact same capabilities as the City Hall meeting room. So it would be good, especially since, at least for now, you're still overlapping with Sustainable Greenfield, to have at least us or them use that meeting room. So we don't have to keep fighting over the City Hall.
Did you say in the library, Christian?
The library, yeah.
'Cause I was talking with Ellen Boyer, asking about another meeting, and she said that they had to go through all kinds of procedures to have guidelines, and she predicted it would take like until December. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reach out to them to see what's happening. But I know if they do anything, hopefully they do something similar to what we do for City Hall and for here, because for both of those, I just make sure there's not another meeting, I just book it. We all know when City Council is going to be here, when regularly scheduled ones are. So hopefully they'll do something similar for library.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else to bring up before or if anyone wants to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn that was seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, anyone abstaining? All right. So that is unanimous and we are adjourned at 6:31 p.m.
I know.